Hi, Jessie.
So I'm so excited to have you part of the Emergent Leadership Summit. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am an emerging leader, Jessie. That's who I am. You've never seen me as a leader before. I'm now emerging here today.
It's about time.
It is about time. Thank you to the Emergent Leadership Summit for allowing me
Yeah.
to be here. And my name is Rob Schiffmann, and I actually live in Summit, New Jersey, making it even more appropriate that I'm here today.
That's actually why we invited you.
I am a professional improviser. So what does that mean? It means that I use the skills of improvisation in all different areas of my career. Some in a performative way. I direct and perform with and produce a company called Broadway's Next Hit Musical, which is an improvisational musical comedy show, and we travel all over the country performing 30, 40 cities a year. I've been performing, as an improviser for a long time. As a matter of fact, I used to work with you at a company in New York called Chicago City Limits.
I remember.
But I also am very involved in applied improvisation, in that I use it as a trainer and a facilitator on courses such as leadership, presentation skills, conflict resolution, all different kinds of areas where improvisation, where the skills of improvisation make a nice parallel to the communicative skills of whatever that particular context is.
Nice.
As well, I'm a professional corporate MC, so I entertain corporate audiences using the skills of improvisation. So it's really taking improvisation and placing it in all different areas.
That's so awesome. I know you've been one to even make up songs, do all sorts of interesting things.
Yeah, I do a lot with musical improvisation. My background is in music and improvisation. So musical improvisation is a nice marriage of the two skills. That's what Broadway's Next Musical does. We do improvised musical comedy, so we're making up songs all over the place. But improvisation, it's a ubiquitous art form, and it applies in so many different areas of business, of the arts, and honestly, just of our lives.
Totally. So I know that your topic today that you want to tell us more about is the idea that mistakes are gifts. And Tell me what that means.
So I think, we work very hard to prepare. In our lives, in our business contexts, in anything that we feel the stakes are high.
Yeah.
We work hard to prepare, which makes a lot of sense. We want to have our ducks in a row. And I think a popular concept of improvisation is that preparation is not a part of it. And that's in fact not the case, essentially because it is impossible to not prepare.
It's a big old lie.
It's a big old lie. You can't not prepare. If you have something that you have to achieve, your brain is going to start planning it, which is a safety mechanism and a perfectly valid one. Right. So the idea that mistakes are gifts and the idea of improvisation within those contexts is not to say don't prepare. It's to say prepare, but be flexible. And where the gift part comes in is if you can be in the true improvisational mindset, then when those moments come up where things go awry, it's not that you back off from them. It's not that you just sort of don't acknowledge them and let them pass. It's that in those moments, the improviser rolls up their sleeves, claps their hands together, and gets excited.
Nice.
And we have moments that lead us to the unexpected. And the unexpected tends to be often a better way to go. The prepared, you are in a narrow context of what you understand and what your history has been. The improvised and the unexpected takes you to a place you never would have thought of, potentially. But it has all kinds of outcomes you also never would have considered. So it's about the idea that you have to allow yourself to be flexible. And I say allow yourself because we have it in us. It's not something you have to make yourself do. It's something you allow yourself to do. You allow yourself to be flexible. And then by allowing yourself to that place of flexibility, you are then able to embrace what comes with that clap and that smile and pull it in and see where you go.
I love that. So Can you think of examples like an example in our history where a mistake has turned into a gift?
Yeah, funny you should ask. There's a terrific example, and that is the essentially the invention or discovery of penicillin.
Hmm.
1828, a
Mhm.
Scottish scientist, Sir Alexander Fleming, was working on a flu virus. So he had this like
Mhm.
streptococcal flu virus sitting in a little vial
Mm.
or a petri dish
Yeah.
in a lab, and he's working on it, studying it. Goes away for 2 weeks, accidentally makes the mistake of leaving the windows open or a window open.
Yeah.
Condensation comes in, mist comes in over those 2 weeks, and when he comes back, there is mold on the side of the petri dish. And what he learns from that mold, from that growth, is in fact that mold leads him straight to the discovery of penicillin.
No way. That's crazy.
And
I
it
didn't know.
never would have happened had he left the window open.
That's insane. Okay, so I get it. So leaving the window open was the mistake, but it led to the discovery.
It was a
That's
gift that has
insane.
benefited us all for decades and decades to come. And it's not one that he had he thought to himself, what is something I'd really love to invent something that can help to cure a virus. I really want to do. Let me try leaving a window open. That
Right.
never would have come to him. There isn't even necessarily a logical A to B in that. The mistake had to do the work on his own, and he had to be in the place where he accepted the mistake, because he could have seen that mold and just went, start over. But
Right.
instead, okay, let's look in and see what this did. So
Yeah.
it's not only about the idea, it's not only about the making of the mistake, but it's about being in that mindset of wanting to explore and embrace the mistake.
Mm. I wonder if, like, we'll look back kind of at the time period we're in right now with this pandemic, and who knows, maybe the mistake.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
I mean, I think everyone's talking about there are silver linings. I mean, of
Mhm.
course, the black cloud is much larger right now than the silver linings, but who knows where we'll be 3 years from now and 4 years from now, and what this horrendous mistake, which is a word in this context that feels almost demeaning because
Yeah.
it's much larger than just a mistake.
Yeah.
But for the metaphor, what are the gifts that will come from this
Right.
mistake? We already see them. We're all spending more time with our families, right?
Right.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and so, yeah, the world is filled with mistakes. And the goal is not to avoid making them. So many people spend their lives doing everything they can to not make the mistakes. The
Mm.
problem with that is it's impossible. It's like saying, don't think about pink elephants. If you're now going to think about pink
Yeah.
elephants. The second you
Go
say,
ahead.
I will not make mistakes, you are opening yourself up to a ton of them. So
Right.
when we embrace the fact that we're going to make mistakes and we allow for them and we embrace them when they come, then we're golden.
Yeah. I think too, I think when we are the kind of person who embraces mistakes versus the perfectionist, you're an easier person to be around in general.
Absolutely.
It's so much more
Absolutely.
human anyway.
Yes. And you are going with the flow. You are truly
Yeah.
living in the present.
Yeah.
And to put that in a business context, we all, at one point or another, we're all going to be tasked with doing some sort of presentation. And
Hmm.
I love thinking about the idea of presence within a presentation. It's right there in the word,
Hmm.
right? Presentations are not about us memorizing and blocking everything out and having it all set. Certainly, all of that to a degree, valuable and necessary. But what's engaging about a presentation? It's engaging when you're watching someone truly speak to you. And in order to truly communicate in the moment, in the present, versus just reading the script in your mind, it requires presence.
Hmm.
I think about often popular singers who have to go out and sing the same song night after night after night. I watched an interview with James Taylor one time talking about singing Fire and Rain.
Uh-huh.
And
That's a
how
good song.
it's such a good song. And he's sung it thousands and thousands of times. And there are, of course, times that he's singing, I've seen fire and I've seen rain. And in the back of his mind, he's like, I wonder what I'm going to have for dinner. Maybe a cheeseburger
I'm gonna
tonight.
have some mac and cheese.
But when he said that when that happens, the way that he brings himself back to the present is to engage himself with the audience, to look in an audience member's eye, because then it becomes a dialogue. You're getting the feedback from the audience member, and suddenly the necessity to actually communicate arises. Mm-hmm. And so you must be present. Mm-hmm. It's subtle, but people can feel it when you're not. You can feel it when you're not, when you're just speaking and things are coming out.
Are there things that you recommend people, like leaders or emerging leaders, could try from improv to stay present or to look at mistakes as gifts? Are there anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
There are. I think there are a number of skills individually that go into this, right? Mm-hmm. And there are a number of exercises mm-hmm. that we can do mm-hmm. to allow us to build those skills. Mm-hmm. I would say one of the first skills that you really have to work on the top of everything else, in improvisation parlance, we'll call it listening. Listening often actually just means observing mm-hmm. In an improvisational context, because it's not only about listening, it's about what you view. Improvisers say listen with your eyes, and I always think, actually there's a word for that. It's called looking. To listen and to look, but it's about the active listening, right? Because we can listen and we can fade in the background and there's music playing and we're doing our own thing. But to engage and to listen in a way that is more active allows you to retain, and it allows you not only retention, but it allows for impact. If you tell me something and I am actively listening, I am also actively open to the idea of being impacted by what you say. Mm. And if I can be impacted what you say, I can respond in a way that is genuine, right?
Yeah, I love that.
But that skill of that skill of listening is not necessarily the easiest skill to obtain. We think we're all pretty good listeners, but a lot can interfere. Chaos can interfere. The day that we've had can interfere. Sound can interfere. Our muddled brain can interfere. So much can. Our relationship with the person to whom we're listening can interfere, or at least it can color how we hear what it is we're saying or is being said to us. Let's do this, Jessie. Let's do an exercise together, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know this exercise, I think, because we've done it together. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, clap, snap, stomp.
Woo, yes.
So for you viewing audience, what we're going to do is Jessie and I are going to count back and forth together from 1 to 3 over and over again. So let's give it a try, Jessie. I'll go ahead and start. 1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3. Okay, so there we go. Already our brains are going, and we have the slight delay of internet and the Zoom, which is even adding a little bit to the chaos, which is good in this case, right? Because what I want is for us to recognize that chaos is getting in the way of how we perceive. So now what we're going to do is every time a 1 comes around, whoever's saying it is going to snap instead of saying their 1. So we'll say 2 and 3, but we're going to snap instead of saying our 1. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, you start this time.
Okay.
2,
3, 2,
3, 2,
3.
So already you can see that even me and Jessie, the professional improvisers, we're getting all fakaked, as my mom would say.
Our brain is broken.
Instead, what I'm going to ask is this: one thing that a trigger for improvisers is chaos. Chaos can take you away from your ability to perceive in a way that is active and effective. And the response to chaos tends to be that we respond chaotically. So that happened. I was a 2 for me. I literally kind of went, like I did a little shaking, right? And what I'm going to ask us both to do now is to actually to slow down. Because one thing I never said is let's do this quickly, but we both have this feeling of, got to stay on task, got to stay on task. So we're going to slow down our brains. If that means slow down our speed, fine. And we're just going to take a breath and go slow and take our time and see what happens. Are we ready? Here
Yep.
we go.
2,
3, 2,
3, 2,
3, 2.
3.
Okay, so we calmed ourselves, we quieted ourselves, and suddenly we were able to perceive more effectively. Now let's spice things up again a little bit. This game is called Snap, Clap, Stomp. So we're going to do it again. This time we're going to clap on 2. We're going to snap on 1, clap on 2, and we're not going to. And 3, we'll just say 3. Got it?
Got it.
Here we go. 3,
3,
3.
3.
So we're able now to take this thing, which just got a little more complicated, and we're able to actively listen, actively observe, stay on task, and be present, because we know that rather than respond to chaos chaotically, we're going to respond to chaos in a way that is quiet. And that's going to allow us to lean in and perceive. The last step is stomp. We're going to stomp on 3. Snap on 1, clap on 2, stomp on 3. You're going to hear the stomp, not see it, because this is video. Here we go. There we go. Good. You see it. So
with my head, because you can't hear the rug.
Perfect. So in that exercise, we were able to go from a place of chaos to a place of quiet and calm. And as a result, we were able to accomplish the task that was put before us by listening to one another, by being impacted by the move that was made before us. But it's hard to do when you're feeling chaotic. This alone is an exercise that as a leader, you can do with your team. You can literally ask them before a team meeting. You can say, okay, everybody up. And you can have people pair off and do this exercise. Of course, it has to be in pairs because you want the chaos of 2 people counting to 3. So that's one practical way that we can begin to work on our improvisational skills. The next thing beyond listening is the idea of yes-anding, building together. Yes and is a popular concept. It's sort of like in the Gestalt now, people know about it. The idea of yes and an improvisation is the idea of accepting an offer not necessarily like, the way a lawyer would talk about an offer, but an offer being anything that is put on the table, something we can capitalize on. And we limit our scope as to what that may be, but you can capitalize on anything put on the table, an idea, a sentence, a phrase, a word. So we take this idea, we say yes to it, and then we add information. So Jessie, let's try this, okay? I'm going to say a sentence, and then you're going to respond. You're going to say the words yes and you're going to complete that phrase, okay? And then I'm going to say yes and complete that, and we'll see where we go, okay? All right. It's Tuesday.
Yes, and I've lost my shoes.
Yes, and those shoes were going to be worn to the prom.
Yes, and they matched my beautiful dress.
Yes, and that dress does not go with any other color.
Yes, and it's making me cry.
Yes, and it's going to make it even harder for you to become the prom queen.
Yes, and nobody's going to love a prom queen with mascara running down her face.
Yes. See, now this is getting personal for me because I had this very experience as the prom queen.
I knew it.
That was emotional for me.
I read your diary.
Good. So we took a very simple, minute, benign idea. It's Tuesday. And by adding information and building upon that information, we were able to lead to something greater. Let's do it one more time, and I want to show a common mistake. Okay? Let's see. It's cold outside.
Yes, and I have a furry jacket.
Yes, and I'm not going to be able to go sledding. I am going to be able to go sledding.
Yes, and I have a huge sled.
Yes, and tomorrow it's supposed to be warm.
Yes, and I will sit inside all day.
Yes, and I really love eating ice cream even when it's cold. Okay, so let's stop. All of these ideas are built on the concept of it's cold outside, but they are not built on the offer that was made right before the one that you make. So it wasn't additive. It's like, we had this offer, here's a yes and. We had an offer, here's a yes and. We had an offer, here's a yes and. It's not, we had an offer, here's a yes and. Here's a yes and off that, here's a yes and off that. We're not building a wall, we're building a line of bricks. And if you parallel this to the way that we work in a corporate culture, when there's a problem, it's not that people aren't game on to try to solve the problem. It's that we might end up with 10 different problems, or 10 different solutions, none of which become fleshed out. Everybody's putting ideas out there. At some point, as leaders, it's our job to say, okay, let's explore this one. And if we can say, let's explore this one, and we can build a culture that embraces the concept of yes and, suddenly we have facilitated the possibility that people might build upon each other's ideas and reach a solution. Now, who knows if that solution is going to be viable? But if we build that culture, we build the culture that allows for mistakes, we will eventually end up somewhere not only that we didn't expect to go, but in a place that we built together and a place that has a solid foundation. So it's not easy. You have to put yourself in that mindset, which is really the last step. So we have the idea of listening. We have the idea of yes-anding. Finally, it's the idea of the posture that you need to be able to accept that mistakes are gifts. Because it's not only about the ability to see it, it's about the ability to go back to that hand clap together, that excited little kid nature, right? That comes with the desire to play. That comes with the openness, which comes from experience. If you employ listening or observation, and you employ the skills of yes and you as a leader build a culture that employs those skills, eventually you can rest in it and start to get excited about what comes. And that's the posture that we need. As an improviser long ago, I was doing an improvisational exercise called conducted story. A conducted story is you have a number of actors standing on stage telling a story, and you have somebody conducting, and that person points at one of the actors, and that actor speaks. And when the conductor points to someone else, this one stops, this one starts. Even if it's the middle of a word. So you can't finish your thought. Once the finger's off you, you're muted, you're done. Which is tricky because we want to control. It goes back to that idea of preparation. We want to prepare. We want to know where we're going. The improvising posture is that when the finger pulls off, you stop, you give up control. And you have joy in giving up that control. So we're doing this exercise, and it's a gangster story. And in the gangster story, the conductor had their finger on me, and I was saying, one of the characters in the story had just been shot, and I was saying, suddenly a blue, because in my mind, sort of a blue pallor or sheen came over this character as they fell back and died. But in the middle of the word blue, or right after the word blue, the conductor pointed to another actor, and that actor said, "Jay of Death" landed on his shoulder. Suddenly we had the blue jay of death.
That's amazing.
Now, none of us went, no. There's no such thing as a blue jay. Go back. It was in that moment that posture took effect because we all went, yes, the blue jay of death.
Blue jay of death.
Him, had to discover him, right? Had to allow him to come, or her. With blue jays, I don't know. Can they be boys or girls? I don't even know. So, yeah. So the blue jay of death, we now have the blue jay of death. And what the improvising posture does is it said, well, we're not just going to let that thing get away. That blue jay of death is here to play. Right. So now every time a character in our little gangster story got shot, who should show up but the blue jay of death? Right. So the blue jay of death to me is this symbol of what it is to truly improvise and to truly embrace that improvisational mindset. We never would have created it. We had to discover it and we had to embrace it. And in our context, it was embracing. The embracing came through repetition. But in any context, it's the ability to use the mistake, to apply it, and to find why it came, and the fun ways that we can use it to advance our cause.
Yes.
So just to go back and review, in order to be able to pivot, in order to truly gain that power to pivot, we have to embrace that mistakes are gifts. In order to build the skills to be able to embrace that mistakes are gifts, we have to be able to listen and actively listen and to respond to chaos in a way that is quiet and not chaotic. We have to be able to we have to be able to build on the ideas of others, not that first idea springing off in different directions, but what's just come, building on that and building on that and building on that. And finally, we have to embrace that blue jay of death. We have to be in that posture that says, yes, something just went in a direction we didn't see it going. If we can put those things together, then we can pivot, then we can play. I want to tell you a story about something that happened several weeks ago. My daughter was asked to go and look to see how much toilet paper we had. This was before COVID had even started, right? Mm-hmm. She went, she looked, she came back, and she was told that the toilet paper was in a cabinet. She went back, she looked, she came back, she said, we don't have any toilet paper. We said, great, let's go. Off to Costco we went, got a ton of toilet paper. Came home, went to put the toilet paper away, and lo and behold, there was a ton of toilet paper already in the cabinet. She had looked in the wrong cabinet. She went to the medicine cabinet, put the paper under the sink. Had she not made this mistake, we would be in COVID-19 times at this point with no toilet paper. So, mistakes in this case truly are gifts.
Oh, yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
I love it. I love it. What a great story. Thank you, Rob, for being part of the summit and for sharing that fantastic story.
Thank you, Jessie. Thanks so much for having me. This is a pleasure, and I hope that folks who are in a leadership position, I know this feeling, having been in one in my own life. I know that feeling that when the stakes are high, we want to get it right. But let's just see what happens when we don't get it right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.